will be hosted by myself and Panos Vouzis, who is our co-founder and COO. There he is. He will be doing the majority of the webinar. I just facilitate the questions. So Panos, take it from there.
Thank you, Jess. And so today, thank you all for being here. And today we'll be talking about how to monitor your VPN from remote workers for remote workers. We'll talk about, why it is important these days. I guess most of us now, since you are here attending this webinar, and we'll show you how you can do it with Netbeans, right? To monitor this experience, VPN experience and availability end to end. I have only a few slides, I promise, and then I'm going to show you with a live demo how you do this with Netbeans, and then open it to Q&A. So, I mean, before the pandemic, there were 4 million people working from home, either on a permanent base or on a hybrid type of arrangement, right? Of course, during the pandemic, after the pandemic hit and the first lockdowns came into our lives, the estimate is that around 22 million people that could work from home were online and doing their job, right? Of course, everybody have seen the benefits and some drawbacks, obviously, but I think there's a big consensus that hybrid work or work from home work is here to stay, right? In any type of arrangement. And the estimate actually is that in a few years, there are going to be even more people working from home because employees demand that, they want that, they like that, and companies are making arrangements to facilitate and be able to support their employees working from home. Of course, everybody's first priority was to bring everybody online, right? While before you would have any given day, a small percentage of your employees on your VPN, from one day to the next, IT support groups were asked to onboard everybody, right? And be able to support everybody with their VPN. Of course, scaling of the VPN and, keeping the lights on was the first priority for the first few months. Things actually went pretty well from everybody's, I would say, experience, because we're prepared for that. VPN was there, but not to support 100% of the employees, right? But the result, of course, was that having more employees on your VPN meant more tickets. And the estimate is that there was a big stress on IT groups, like a 35% increase in support tickets. And that increased the cost of the support by 30%. Talking about VPN today, from a recent research by EMA, recent study they did, they found out by asking IT professionals that 30% of the tickets that IT groups were dealing with had as root cause the VPN. So more people on the VPN meant more tickets, obviously, right, around the VPN and other issues, but we'll focus today our discussion around the VPN, right? And why is that? So this is what a kind of high level, I would say, overview of how work from home kind of access to the VPN or online and cloud apps looks like, right? So if you are, working from home, you have your laptop on your probably consumer grade router, right? And you go either to cloud applications or you go through your VPN to gated application services that you have on-prem, right? On the VPN side, every VPN vendor has some pretty good VPN monitoring tools, I would say, monitoring information. They might have MIB libraries that you can load in your SNMP monitor. However, this gives you the VPN perspective, right? And that's great. You need that information. You need to know how many people are online at any given time, etc., right? But that's what it gives you, right? The VPN view of your users from the VPN's perspective, the concentrator's perspective. And what you need actually, right, is to monitor this end-to-end path, right? So you need to be able to monitor what's going on from the user's laptop all the way to the VPN, and if you can pass traffic all the way to being able to access gated resources, etc., right? So doing that is something that we do at Netbeans. And the way to do it is by using synthetic monitoring, right? So the way we very simply do it is that we install agents at different parts of your network. Of course, one is the user's laptop, Windows or Mac, that sits at home. And from there, you start a synthetic test, an active monitoring test that goes check certain basic things, right? Is the VPN up, right? Can I pass traffic through the VPN? What can I reach? Can I reach my on-prem application I'm supporting, right? So we do this from the user's laptop. Also, we have the ability, since you have agents that can cover all aspects of your network, you can do it from a branch location to monitor the VPN of the whole branch. You can do that by using a wired agent that we offer, or a virtual agent or a Docker agent that even can run on the actual VPN router. Many VPN routers these days offer hosting, right? And then the third one is a cloud agent. So the cloud agent is kind of what I call the baseline or the golden standard, right? So we install a Netbeans agent on AWS. So AWS has 5-6 nines of uptime. So I expect this cloud agent to run 24/7 and also run the same test the other two agents run. So it means like, can I access the VPN gateway? Can I pass traffic, etc., right? So the thing here is that I expect this agent to be up all time. And if this agent goes down and this agent let's say, detects that the VPN concentrator is not accessible or cannot pass traffic, that means nobody else will, right? If my remote branch agent shows that the VPN is not accessible, that means all my users in that remote branch won't be able to access my VPN. And as a third level, I would say, the more fine grain you can go is to install an agent on the actual user's laptop, right? So that here you are, of course, subject to what the user does with the laptop. They might turn off the laptop, they might disconnect their VPN, right? So that doesn't give you the VPNs itself, I would say, availability, but only like the user's experience device by device in terms of the VPN accessibility, right? So this gives us the availability and uptime of the VPN, I would call it. And then a second set of tests gives us more information about the bandwidth, right? So the way we do the bandwidth testing in this case is that by using, again, a cloud agent that sits in the same environment with the VPN concentrator. In our case, our VPN concentrator is on AWS, and we install an agent in the same network, right? So we could also install an agent on the actual VPN concentrator, but for security purposes, also performance purposes, I mean, you don't want to mess with the VPN concentrator too much, right? So, but it's a close enough approximation to install an agent on the VPN router, and then run again end-to-end bandwidth testing with iPerf. If you're familiar with iPerf, it's a bandwidth testing tool that from the end user's device, my laptop in this case, Panos, right, all the way to this cloud agent. So I consider that a very good approximation to show how much traffic I can pass from the branch or my laptop to the VPN. Okay, nice. So now with that, I'm going to show you how we do this with Netbeans. Move on here. Okay, so this is our dashboard here, a demo dashboard we have. So for the ones that don't know, so Netbeans in a nutshell, we do end user experience monitoring or digital experience monitoring. And we install agents. We have agents for any corner of your network. So we have agents that can be installed on a Debian box, like as a package. We have agents that can be installed in any cloud provider, Google, Amazon, Docker agents, virtual agents, hardware agents, Wi-Fi agents, everything, right? The whole 9 yards. So you can cover all parts of your network and run this type of synthetic monitoring end-to-end, ping, DNS, HTTP, traceroute, and also performance testing like the IP I just mentioned, speed test, etc., right? Voice monitoring. So these are the types of agents we have, and each one of these agents sits at different locations. These are what we call network agents. And then we have remote worker agents. So these are, again, Mac and Windows agents that you see here. This is my agent sitting on my laptop that I'm using actually right now for this webinar. And I'm running a set of tests. Okay, I'm monitoring my wireless also. I'm plugged in right now actually, so I'm not using my Wi-Fi. It's good to do it as well if you can. Avoid your Wi-Fi. And on the targets view, here's the tests I'm running. So I already created a set of VPN tests, what we just talked about, because I want to have some data to show you, right? But let me show you how you would create this set of tests I just talked about on the PowerPoint in a very few steps, right? And I want to demonstrate here two things: how to do this, obviously, how easy it is, and also how scalable. So if you have over hundreds or thousands of users or remote branches and office, you can do this like with a few clicks, right? So let me create this VPN webinar target, give it a name. Then I'm going to monitor. We talked about three things, right? One is the gateway. So I'm going to put the IP here, and I'm going to name this gateway. And I'm going to monitor this with ICMP, traceroute, and path analysis. Okay. I'm going to monitor my concentrator. Okay, and the same types of tests. And also I'm going to test with this by, again, pinging this host here that sits behind my VPN, right? I'm testing my VPN is actually functional, right? If it can pass traffic and how much traffic can pass, right? So I can say here, like just host, like VPN host or whatever, right? So, so these three, from these three targets I talked about, from the agents I'm going to pick right now here, right? So here now I'm going to choose this cloud agent we talked about that sits on AWS. That is kind of our golden standard and baseline in terms of uptime. Then I'm going to choose just to demo here this, Office One wired agent. So I just chose a wired agent, not a Wi-Fi, because I don't want to have that Wi-Fi also in the picture here. I want to isolate only, like the one router, right? The VPN router. It's the hardware Netbeans agent, and also my laptop here. It's here, but you can also see here have other Mac users here or other Windows users. Imagine here having like hundreds of users. You can group them. You can say, I want to add all end users in this target, right? And start this test from all your remote users and remote branch offices. And as a next step, here I'm going to choose VPN. The reason for that is that, especially for end users, what I want to do is, let's say if somebody's at home and using their VPN, of course, I want this VPN test to be active and running. But if this user next day comes to the office and he's not on the VPN anymore, I don't want this test to keep running, because obviously they're on campus, they don't need to be on the VPN, they won't be on the VPN, right? So I want that test to be paused. So this kind of tells me that these tests are VPN related only, right? So I want them to run only when the user is on their VPN network. And after that, I'm going to choose what alerts I want to receive. Of course, I want an up-down alert. So if this test, ICMP test to my VPN router fails from my cloud agent and all the agents, I want to know about it, right? Because it shows that something wrong there. Also, if my latency goes above 200 milliseconds, that sounds too high. So if the VPN round trip time is that high, also want to know about it. And when my packet loss goes above 5%, 5 is, again, something that shouldn't be there under normal conditions, a very high packet loss value, and can be there like the precursor of some serious problem, right? And similar tests for traceroute, right, etc. So then I'm going to add my email here to receive notifications when this any of these alerts get triggered, and I'm going to hit save. I won't hit save because, again, this is the duplicate of the target I just created yesterday. And I'm going to show you how this looks like. So here it is. I have here my target. As you can see, it's running from these three agents for now. My cloud agent. Okay, so you see here a very smooth, round trip time. I would say it's not something expected because both agents on the cloud, and I would expect a very solid network connection there. Here now is the round trip time from the wired agent. You see some jitter introduced. Of course, this is the branch office. It goes through the internet, right, etc., to the cloud. So I would expect some of this, and then the agent running on my laptop, right? So I see here again, it's smoother than the previous one, but you get the idea, right? So how this would look like, and at the same time, you can see other metrics about the user experience that, for example, the CPU usage, right? The RAM usage, so that can help you close the picture if a user has bad, opens a ticket or has bad video conferencing quality. You can correlate data between, CPU that's utilized on the agent, RAM usage, and also things like Wi-Fi monitoring, etc. Right? So this is what we call, obviously, the target view. This is the view from all the different agents, right? For the gateway, the concentrator, and the host that I'm trying to ping behind the VPN. So this tells me that my VPN is running and can pass traffic and everything looks okay, right? Now, from the agent's perspective, I'm going to show you that view as well. I'm here on the agent on my laptop, and I can see here, the same data I just created earlier, but I can see here all the three different ICMP and traceroute tests from my agent only. Obviously, I can see historical data, so I can go back in time. If you're troubleshooting a ticket about an issue that the user experienced yesterday, you can go back in time and see what was going on. So here, for example, this morning, I restarted my router, okay, because it was acting up, and I want to make sure that, when I prepare for this webinar, my router is rebooted. And for this few minutes, I couldn't access the VPN, obviously, right, from my laptop. So that was from 9:03 to 9:07. If I look for the same period of time, if I look at this, obviously, cloud agent that runs the same test to the VPN concentrator, right, around 9 a.m., I'm going to see that the data is all there, right? So there was no interruption to my VPN. So that kind of confirms that, let's say you were troubleshooting something, you can look at both agents and see, okay, you can use your cloud agent as your golden standard and say, hey, my VPN was up, it was accessible, could pass traffic at 9 a.m. that this user complained. Of course, if that had happened, everybody would complain, you knew about it, right? But I give you the data here, and how can you use this to complement your troubleshooting of VPN issues. And it would be the same for the wired office, that the wired agent of the remote office I talked about earlier. Yeah, and with that, I want to keep it today focused on VPN specifically, and talk only about this. In previous webinars, we talked about in more detail about what Netbeans does, what other information it provides in terms of remote workers, right? So many of you know that we offer, for example, information about the user's Wi-Fi, right? The path analysis is also a very useful tool. So here I see the path from my home. Let's use this one. My home agent to the VPN. Let's look at the remote office one. Right, so here's the path analysis from the remote office to the VPN. No, this is not the concentrator, but this is just in the same VLAN, right? So let's look at the concentrator. I think that should work. Let's give a better view of the path from A to B. So this is a feature we introduced last year, and it's like, I would say, trace route on steroids, as we call it, and gives you the equal cost multipath between two hosts. In this case, of course, is between my wired agent sitting in the branch office and the VPN concentrator. It takes a little bit of time to load. So let's give it a minute. And do you have any questions, Jess?
Nope, not yet. I was just typing into the chat to remind people that they can ask questions.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So here, for example, you see with the path analysis. So this is my branch office wired agent going through DQE to the VPN concentrator, right? With statistics around round trip time, averages. You can see the send view is like just one hop here, as you can see, and yeah, so this is what it looks like. So okay, we don't have any questions. All right.
Looks like there is one here, which is what VPN vendors do you support? Right.
So that's I would say mostly for the remote worker agent, I assume. So in that case, we recognize like all the major VPN vendors that somebody can have installed on their laptop. Cisco AnyConnect, Palo Alto, SafeGate, Fortinet, OpenVPN, so etc. Right. So if you have one of those VPNs, should be recognized by the agent. For example, let me look at my agent here. I have the interfaces here, right? Well, let me connect my VPN. But yeah, so while I'm doing that, so it's connect. I mean, it's not connected right now, but as you can see, this is OpenVPN, right? So we tell you here for the VPN interface, we give you information about obviously the IP, MAC address, right? Which vendor it is, model, etc. Right? So we give all this information as part of the interface status.
Another one is, can you run speed tests across the VPN in order to understand throughput?
Yes, so let me show you what we did here. So let me look at this. It's going to be my agent here. Okay. So I'm running this test from my laptop to the cloud agent I talked about earlier. And you can see here, apart from the ICMP up down monitoring, you can see here that I can pass reliably 24 or 25 megabps, right, from my laptop to my VPN network, and the same for example, wired agent, right, that is in my branch office. So in addition here, I also have like some kind of an alert, which tells me that, you can set up that manually and you can set them to whatever value you want, but I put an alert here to be notified to show you how it looks like if my bandwidth is below 33 megabps. Yeah. So I have another question here. I can read it. How can Wi-Fi issue determination be overlaid on top of VPN analysis to correctly determine root cause? Right. So, right. So I guess let me go back to to the presentation. So that's maybe illustrate a little bit better how we could do this, right? So because, yes, your traffic, if you're on VPN and Wi-Fi at the same time with your laptop, you're gonna go through the Wi-Fi, obviously, like medium, and then to VPN, right? So they are part of the same path. So the Wi-Fi information is, let me look at my agent here. Well, let's see an agent that has Wi-Fi connected. In my case, I told you that I disconnected my Wi-Fi. I'm plugged in to avoid any mishaps here. But we look here at Panikos's agent, right? And we can, as a health check, we can check what the Wi-Fi looks like, right? So we see here that has a pretty good signal strength, 45, I mean, more than 50 minus 50 dBm. Noise level is very low. So you can see the health of the Wi-Fi connection, right? Is very solid. Is MCS is 9 almost, right? I can look at the history and I can see that over the course of the last several hours, his Wi-Fi has been very stable, right? So from that perspective, I can see here and understand that it looks like the Wi-Fi here is solid, right? I don't have to worry about it. So then I can, so when I'm looking at the VPN data, I can exclude the health of the Wi-Fi as one of the root cause of the problems, right? If the user has issue with the VPN connection, right? Yeah, I mean, because if the Wi-Fi, of course, is not what expect to be, then you're gonna have issues not only with your VPN, but with all your tests. So if you're running a set of tests to capture the whole user experience, and you have issues with your Wi-Fi, you would see that reflected on all types of testing, right? When you're measuring against Google, Zoom, etc.